Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on the Fire Engineering Podcast Network. This is the episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, and it's dedicated to great volunteer firefighters everywhere, and also to the idea that developing, maintaining, and portraying a professional image and reputation, well, that's the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, paid and volunteer for that matter. So Tom Merrill here, and thank you so much for listening in. If your summer's like mine, it's been flying by, packed full of activities, very busy, but fall will be here pretty soon. And starting this month, I'm hitting the fall stretch of my presentation circuit. I think I got 11 presentations coming up around the country. If you're going to be in the area where any of my presentations are, I'd love to meet you. You can go to my website, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, see where I'm going to be. And heck, if I'm in your neck of the woods, please come on out and see me. I would love to meet you and talk with you about our fire service. I'll be everywhere from New Mexico to South Dakota to Maine to Florida and then throughout New York State as well. So like I said, check out my website, the professionalvolunteerfiredepartment.com, for a full listing of where I will be. And I'm very excited to announce that I will be back at FDIC, the greatest fire conference in the world, next April in Indianapolis. And I'm very excited about that. I never, ever take that for granted. And I will always work hard to represent fire engineering, Clarion, and the FDIC brand to the best of my ability. I'm so appreciative for that. But I want to get into today's installment to the Professional Volunteer Fire Department because I have two fire service legends on with me today, two fire service icons who I think I can call them my friends, and they really, really did me a favor by taking the time to come on the show because they're all going in so many different directions. So I really appreciate Chief Rick Lasky, Chief John Salka for joining me. We haven't been on together in a while, and actually they beat me up a little bit I think it was at FDIC back in April. When are we going to be back on your podcast? We got to be back on your podcast. And I thought I would have gotten to it sooner than this, gentleman, but had a few other topics on the agenda over the months, and
he left us little people, John. He left those little people behind in the dust. It's like, where's Tom at? He's over there. That limo just picked him up. The limo just picked him up last night. We're waiting on
He's the ride.
We're waiting on our Uber.
Oh gosh!
He found time.
Now we're gonna lose.
Found time to slip us in between the.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking the time to be here, gentlemen. I really, really, you guys mean so much to me. You're here. We got you, Chief. Chief Salka is joining us from his van down by the river. But we got him with us. And, one thing that's always been important to me, or what I really like about you, I know you're both volunteers and you really support the volunteer fire service. You talk highly of it. You've been involved in it for years. You've obviously been on both sides of the aisle, career side and the volunteer side. But your support it's genuine. You genuinely have so much to say about the volunteer fire service, and you get it. You are two guys that really get it. And there's doom people out there, doomsday scenarios. The end of the volunteer fire service is right around the corner. And, you'll admit there are challenges, but there's also a lot of good. And I don't have a script for today, but I wanted to pick your brains about, let's stop talking about all the negatives with the volunteer fire service and let's focus on some of the positives because, I think sometimes negativity always rises to the top, unfortunately. And I want to put that aside. And wouldn't you agree that with the challenges, there's still a lot of good things going on?
Well, and I'll jump in here. Yes, there's a lot of negativity. We've talked about that before. I think the numbers are still close to out of just under 40,000 fire departments, 66% are still volunteer. I'll throw this out there. Let's say one day it's 50% volunteer, 50% career. That means 50% of the fire department, and I'm not even involving our fire service family up in Canada, Tom. 50% of the fire departments in the United States are volunteer. We're still at 66%. I'm just saying, if it was the end of the volunteer fire service, we were at 10% 12% of overall, I'd go, wow, even if it drops to 50, that means half of the fire departments in this country are still volunteer, which
Right.
is a huge number,
Right.
But there are some things that we talked about before that, and we've talked about this. There's a, you think about this whole thing started in 1736 with Ben Franklin, the first volunteer fire department. It's been around a long time, and I mentioned this to one of our friends, Kim from Texas, that it takes someone very special to be a volunteer firefighter. When you think about the whole thing, you want when we talk about recruitment, you want to find someone in your life that is a good person. Find out they're a volunteer firefighter. This is someone who stepped up to serve their community, not just like at a particular function. It's all the time. It's 2 a.m. It's when it's snowing and when it's raining, when it's hot, when it's cold. No matter what the call is, if you're available, that whole saying, all good friends come to the aid of their neighbor. I think the volunteer fire service is chock full of great, wonderful people who are committed to a greater cause. That in most cases they're not on call, they're not getting money at the end of the year, nothing. They're doing it for free, committing to their time. They're sitting there having dinner, they're in bed at night, they're doing stuff, they're mowing the grass, and beep, 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 and out they go, boom, they're done. There's probably more lawnmowers shut off on someone's front lawn just sitting there while somebody's running to the firehouse, or there's more things being missed at home because volunteers are they're just such special people. They truly are.
Yeah. Boy, think of all the lawns I left. How many times I left my mower in the middle of the lawn to run and answer a call over the years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And John, how many times have we been talking and you've been out working in your yard and it's got beep, 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 beep. He goes, got to go, got to run. And off he goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we lost him again.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, well, let's keep rolling with this, Tommy. So,
with that point about the neighbor, I got to tell you a story that just came to mind. So as my listeners know, my paid job is as a fire alarm office dispatcher. And it was either 1 or 2 years ago. I think it might have just been last fall. It was last fall, like October last year. And I'm working at our fire alarm office. Or no, I'm sorry. I was home because it was a Sunday and my department got toned out for a cardiac arrest call. And it was during the Buffalo Bills game. That's why I'll never forget it. And my department responded and it was a successful call. The gentleman was saved. Wow. But what strikes me about this call is there were some ceremonies going on because the gentleman is a very renowned doctor and he wants to do some awareness for early intervention for cardiac arrest victims and the importance of defibrillation, things like that. So I had to play the tapes back, the recordings back of the incident to get some information. So I'm listening to the phone call his wife made, and then his daughter got on the line. And of course, they're pretty excited. And the fire dispatchers at my alarm office are trying to provide the pre-arrival medical directions for CPR. And all of a sudden you hear a knock on the door and someone's at the door and you hear our firefighters say fire department because it was someone that lived down the street, our member. And the wife says on the phone to the dispatcher, "Oh, the firefighters are here now." And her next words out of her mouth were, oh, as the firefighters walking in, she goes, "You're my neighbor." And that sums it up so great. Neighbors helping neighbors. Cardiac arrest, volunteer firefighter down the street, within there in a minute, and there it is on the recording. They're here now. Oh, you're my neighbor. And I was like, boy, does that sum it up.
What a great example. I talk a lot when I do my history class, Tom. Our history should be day one of the Fire Academy, and one of the things I talk about is like terminology. And one of the terms out there is the term slacker, which gets its birth in the fire service. Back in the day with bucket brigades, if you got a bucket brigade working in a community, obviously it's all volunteer back then with the buckets, and Jonathan's walking across the street with his top hat and his tails or whatever. And he doesn't stop to join in. 2 or 3 of the members already in the chain would break ranks, go over and beat him, and he'd be deemed a slacker. And the whole point was, if you think once in a while we have a volunteer that just pushes the pager and doesn't go to a call because they don't want to go to a call, Could you imagine what it would be like back then if people didn't join in when their neighbor's house on fire to do a bucket brigade, let alone even respond, you know? And so when you say, oh, that's my neighbor, all good friends come to the aid of their neighbor. That whole saying goes back to those days of, that's what it was. They had ordinances that everybody had to have a bucket hanging in the front of their house or their business. Right. And when the foreman, the officer would run down the street with the trumpet yell and throw you buckets in the street, they'd run by scooping them up and go to wherever the incident was. There was a lot of things we had to do back then kind of to force people to step in and help. Mm-hmm. I've always thought, like you said, the cool thing about the volunteer fire service is it's your neighbors. It's the school teachers, the police officers, the plumbers, the electricians. It's the doctor. It's the lawyer. I mean, and I'll real quick, when I talk about Wichita West, with our friend Ryan Fetzer is the chief, I used to look around when I'm teaching there, Tommy, and I'd look and I'd go, he's a bus driver. Okay. He actually teaches bus driving and safety. He's a deputy sheriff. She's a Texas Forest firefighter. He's in the Air Force. He's an electrician. He's a plumber. He builds houses. He builds fence. He runs this business. He runs that business. Oh my God, we had everything covered in there. And what I think is cool, you want to celebrate things in the volunteer fire service, Tom. The volunteer fire service takes a whole bunch of people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, and we smush them together and we make this all-star team. Now, a lot of businesses, not to pick on the private sector, but you get out of school, you get out of college, you go to work for such and such corporation. And that's what you do. When you look at a volunteer firefighter, they're already working somewhere, maybe 2 different careers, or they have hobbies or whatever. And then they volunteer their time at the fire department, which brings this whole trainload of different cars full of talent into the homes of the people we're serving. And how many times you've been somewhere, you go, wait, where's my electrician at? David, come here. Where's my plumber? Where's this? I'm just amazed. I don't know if you are, Tom, at the talent that we have in the fire service, especially the volunteer fire service. And again, what it takes for people, I know so many volunteers that got in trouble with their regular job because they're late getting there because they were holding over on a call. They couldn't get away from the scene. You're balancing. Can I still make, I've done that. Oh God, the call's coming at 5. Do I still have time to go to that call, get back in time to make my regular job? Or you're up all night and then you go to your regular job exhausted. Mm-hmm. You miss Christmas, you miss birthdays, you miss anniversaries, you run out the door at Thanksgiving. When no other corporation would do that, they would tell you to go, they would say, I got 2, you say, hey, this year for Christmas, I want you to hurry up. As soon as you open up your presents from Santa with your kids, I want you to hurry up and run back to the fire to work. Yeah. Okay. This year during Thanksgiving, right in the middle, miss one anniversary. And they would go, I got 2 words for you. And they're not Merry Christmas. Very few people could commit to that way of life. So, you know what? Yes, I do sound partial, and I am not going to apologize. Volunteer firefighters are some of the most special people on the face of the earth.
Right.
And I love people that volunteer with the PTA, Little League Baseball. I used to do it with my daughter's softball, stuff like that. Volunteerism is huge. But oh my goodness. And that's why I've told people, Tom, not to ramble on here a little bit too long, but whether you want to crawl to burning buildings or you want to be a fire patrolman or you want to do just EMS or you just want to do rehab or you just want to drive or whatever, there's always a use for you at your local volunteer fire department. Because how many guys have said, I don't know if I could crawl into a burning building. Well, what do you do? Well, I'm a truck driver. I'm this. No. Come here. We could use you in 1,000 different ways in our fire department. Right.
Right. Yeah. I want to dive into that if you don't mind, because
and apparently, real quick, Tom, I feel bad. We lost John Salka due to a technical.
Yeah, he's been having some technical issues.
We'll get him back.
We'll find him somewhere down the road.
Yeah, keep going, buddy.
No, I just want to dive into that because I believe that a well-balanced, a well-run volunteer fire department needs to recognize that everyone can bring value to your organization. I dare say there are people that join that never have any desire to take that hose line down a hallway. There are people that join that just don't like maybe blood or guts, right? But everyone can bring value. And then there's those that do have that ambition and they want to do it all. But as they get older, they get a little mellower. And they transition and they want to get into other roles. And a good balanced volunteer fire department opens up those roles for them to say, you want to transition to, like you said, a fire patrol person. We call it fire police in our area, or an exterior firefighter, driver only, value. The challenge sometimes is making it all a cohesive team. You don't want cliques to form. Oh, you're not interior.
and you said it, there's some guys that I've met that you've met tons of, and I have too, that are up there in years. They no longer want to go inside, but they've been driving big rigs their whole life. And in most cases, they're the best driver on the department, the safest driver in the department. They have the most experience in the department. And I've kind of laughed. So you can let your grandma or grandpa drive this gigantic RV vehicle with towing cars behind it and travel into little RV parks and into state parks and down little streets and back it in and go to all this stuff. But they're not capable of driving a fire engine. So some people are talking out of two sides of their mouth when they say, well, someone's aged out, because I've been to places where I told you there was a guy, I think he's 86 years old. I got there and they had a call. He comes up, hey, how you doing? You're Chief Lasky. Yeah, I'm seeing your class tomorrow. And he puts out a pot of coffee and he sits down at the radio desk. He's working the radio and a covering company comes in. He opens the door. He gets to the map book, and everybody has value if you're willing to look for it, whether you're an exterior firefighter, a driver, you do rehab, auxiliaries. There's a lot of auxiliary people that have no desire to go into a burning building, but they're out there marking hydrants with the poles for wintertime, clearing hydrants in the winter. They're doing public education events for you, open house events, helping you on maintenance days with the vehicle, the station. I mean, there's so many things. And so, I'll say this, and I know we want to keep it on the positive side. A lot of people want to talk recruitment and retention. I mentioned this to you before. Our system is broken and we broke it. We need to understand that there's a ton of people out there that have a lot to offer. And I've said this before. I just said it to Kim from the state association here in Texas that covers volunteers. Like Alan Brunacini, remember Alan Brunacini used to have the bumper stickers, "Be Nice"? All I said was "Be Nice." America of France sponsored it. We need one with a Maltese cross on it, Tom, that says, "The volunteer firefighter, ask me." Because I've said that before, the blinking sign in front of the firehouse don't make it anymore. Most people's social media like Facebook, if you're not going to TikTok and where all the young people are, you're not going to attract them. You got to go to the churches, you got to go to sports things, you got to go to where those places are, boys and girls clubs, all those different things to recruit. But at the same time, I think I mentioned this on one of your shows last time, as a good chief, as a good recruiting person in your department, pick out 4 or 5 of your all-stars. If you have 25 people in the department, pick out the 5 all-stars and go to Tom Merrill and say, "Hey, Tom, come here. Hey, go find me one more like you. Go find me a brother-in-law, sister-in-law, a neighbor, someone on your kids' little league team. When hey, you're a volunteer firefighter. Yeah. Go out there and find me just one more like you. And let's continue to build this nucleus of what we've got." So I say, so being a Mason, I don't know if you belong to your Masonic lodge, but Masons are not allowed to go out and actively recruit. It's against the rules, the bylaws. They don't go to, God bless, the halfway house and try to help people rebuild their life. The saying has always been, "Ask me." So if you ever see someone driving, to your viewers, your listeners too, if you ever see somebody in front of the car and it's got the symbol for the Masons, the compass and the square and all that with the G, and it says, "Ask me," that's because they can't go, "So Tom, would you like to be a Mason?" You can't do that. But if Tom Merrill says, "Hey, Rick, so what does it take to be a Mason? Tell me about the Masons." And you go, "Are you asking me?" Yeah. Our good friend Harry Carter was one of my sponsors decades ago. And when I asked Harry Carter to be one of my sponsors for my Masonic Lodge, my Mason application, he goes, how you say, he goes, "So Rick, are you asking me?" Because I said, yes. So, we ought to do the same thing for volunteers. A bumper sticker says, "The volunteer firefighter asked me." People go, "What does that mean, ask me?" Ask me what it takes, what it means to be a volunteer firefighter. We run open houses, we have citizens and business owners and politicians go through it. And at the end, once in a while, they'll go, "So Rick, what does it take to be like an actual volunteer?" I go, "This, what, this, and a few more drill nights, and carry a pager. This, you already went through almost everything that we, in fact, you went through more than some of our volunteers have been through in our 12-month program, 10-month program, 8, whatever it is. Yeah, you do this, you got to show for drill nights. There's some requirements and things like that. And we give you pagers and things. You already saw it all." And they're like, "Really? That's it?" And we miss those opportunities too. But, if we truly want to show our numbers increase, you got to go out to the right people. You got to figure out how to do it. And then you got to go beat the bushes. You can't put a sign out front that says "cool helmet, bad pay" anymore. It doesn't make it. do the cool videos, get out. I mean, the videos on TikTok and Instagram and cutting cars apart and fighting fires and all that stuff and so on and so forth with the music. And real quick, Tommy, I don't know if I told you before, I was at a fire department teaching like you do, and I'm walking across the apparatus bay, and there's a trailer out on the bay, and I'm like, is that your pub ed trailer? And they go, no, that's our recruitment trailer. And they did this through a grant. I think I told you this before, but some of your listeners may not have heard this. It's their volunteer firefighter recruitment trailer. Now, career departments have them too. It was all wrapped with their logo and scenes, and they open up the side door. It's like a food truck. The side door opens up, and there's a big TV in there. Then they start playing this video, this reel that they did. They had, you want to be a firefighter? You want to make a difference? This. And they put out the gear as a prop and the tools and the stuff, and they have brochures, and they have little helmets for the kids. And they drag it to every craft show, every Friday night football game, every event they can go to, even sometimes just one guy, So there are some methods if you want to go, but if you're expecting the old days where you have a list of candidates to pick from, there are some departments still lucky enough to have that, but a lot of them don't, So
yeah.
I mean, we got
a lot going on. I'm encouraged though, as I do get out to the different departments, I am seeing more of a willingness to rethink the membership categories and to keep roles open for members as they get older and transition to different types of roles and responsibilities, maybe not so quick to dismiss them, and even opening the ranks from the very beginning to people that want to join and serve in other capacities. And I've said it on this show and had the discussion again the other night at a conference or at a firehouse I was at, just about the whole administrative membership, where maybe someone joins and then is not even going to go to a call, but they're going to help you in other ways. They're going to make.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, I did. Talk about what I asked you before. You do something really cool there with Snyder, right? Is it Snyder?
Right.
Where you give credit for non-emergency type stuff.
Right.
Not just calls.
Right. If people are involved in committee work, let's say there's a bylaw committee or a committee to maybe redo part of the firehouse, decorating it differently. We award what we call miscellaneous points. We give them points for participating in these other activities, and it goes toward their percentage requirements at our firehouse. So it's factored in there that they're doing other things in addition to training and calls. I'm supposed to go to a meeting tonight at 7:00, and you can drop a sheet for that. We call it dropping a sheet. It's an attendance sheet, and the people at that meeting get a point for it. Or if it's a detail, they're up around the firehouse cleaning things up. Whatever it is, they can drop a point. And the other thing that I didn't realize wasn't common is we let people get points or training credit for going to training outside of our firehouse. And, people, especially today, there's so much available online, and you can get certificates for it to prove that you did take the training. I know of departments that won't award training credit for that, and I just don't understand it. The one argument against it is they want their people in-house for training drills, and I support that. I agree with that. And what we say is you can get as many outside training credits as you want, and we will give you training credit. However, you need to make so many, and we establish a threshold of inside Snyder drills. But go get as much training as you want. Go online, take the courses.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. So you want to go. You got this young guy or whoever, older guy, gal that's into going to the class to get credit, but you still have to make our stuff. And I like your point. It's like, okay, we have our minimum company standards. You have to make so many training hours and so on and so forth. But if you go to extra above and beyond training, we're going to give you credit for that, as for points. And I brought up like Mark Venzer, good friend of mine, is lieutenant at Wichita West for our good friend Ryan. He's the one guy that goes up, mows the grass, wet edges. He's the one that, gets the painting committee together to paint the firehouse, to do stuff and so on and so forth. That's the perfect guy. He should get credit for going up there and spending like a whole day mowing and weeding and everything else. You said it, guys building a ventilation prop, redoing it. They go up there on a Saturday, pull everything out and just give the firehouse, knock the lumps off and get a real thorough cleaning, not just go up there for a half hour and go, do I get points?
Right.
Someone that's doing extracurricular activities. And I brought this up before. So like 3 to 11 is when it's usually our busiest time in the fire service, career volunteer. During the day, we get some calls. After midnights, that 5 a.m. is probably the slowest. But there's some guys and gals that are working and are not available at our busiest times. So to hold them to call volumes that they can't make, there were times I was home, Tom. There were times I was home, and I'm like, oh my god, there's nothing going on. I'm sitting there looking at my pager. I'm all day long. I've been sitting there available, and nothing. What happens? I go to leave to go to the airport, or I go to drive driving the mass transit bus for them, helping them out, and all of a sudden it's like, well, now beep, the pager goes off. I'm like, man, I missed another call. So I like the idea of giving people. I love that idea of giving people credit, because not everybody can make. Not everybody's available at the busiest times, call wise, to get those things going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so, I love that.
You want to hear another neat idea that I forget where I was when I learned of this idea. I've been in a department that will assign credit or give people credit even if there's no calls. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a member who has to travel quite a bit for work, or coaches a travel hockey team or travel baseball team, whatever it is. They just can't be around and drop what they're doing to go to calls. So one thing that this particular department did was award credit for when that member gets home from one of their trips, whether it's business or travel, sports, church group, whatever it is. That member can log in on one of the apps, Active 911 or any of the other apps that are out there, and say, I'm back. I'll be home for 24, 48 hours, whatever it is. I guarantee you that I will be available to go to any calls. And if calls come in, great, they'll get credit for it. But if no calls come in, they still get credit for saying I was available. It really is good for, sometimes it's only for overnight. If someone comes home at 8 at night and they got to leave again for a 2-day trip the next morning at 9, but they're willing to maybe get out of bed that night. If a call comes in, they'll clock in with their app and say, I'm available, and they'll get credit for that. So hopefully at the end of the year, end of the quarter, however they tabulate the points, that member isn't so far behind where all of a sudden they're looking to get rid of them or her. It's a member that's willing to help when they can. And the department understands that they have to travel and might not be available every time the tones drop and to be able to leave their house because they're not home. So
exactly, yeah,
thinking outside the box.
Exactly. Well, that phrase is used a lot, but that's the perfect time for that phrase. Thinking outside the box. Figure out some ways for your people to earn credit for things they're already doing. Or you might see another guy that goes, I never thought about that before. Or it might be easier to get 4 guys, 5 guys to come up and do a project than just 2 when they know I might get some credit for that. You still have to do things. We're not saying, you're not going to become a exempt firefighter where you're no longer going to calls and stuff per se, if you're still capable of doing so. But there are so many different things you can do with your volunteer fire department. I'll go back to what I said originally. Our system is broken, and we broke it. The only person that can repair it is us. Nobody from City Hall is going to fix it. Nobody in Washington, D.C. with the magic wand over the U.S. Fire Administration is going to fix it. It's going to come down to us, departments like Snyder that are progressive enough to go, what can we do to even more recognize our volunteer firefighters, to make them know we value them, that they're appreciated, and that what they do, they make a difference for our community. Because, it's nice on social media to recognize, the month, the volunteer of the month and things like that. It's always awesome. But everybody in the community may not see that. They're bringing their kids home from soccer. They're making dinner. They're doing stuff. If we don't recognize our own people, that's why I'm so big into the ceremonies. If we don't recognize our own people, ain't nobody else going to do it. We need to do it, and we need to find ways to recognize those who are giving their time to be a volunteer or even an on-call firefighter. Certain things to, that's why I think the uniforms are big. I think the decals, the T-shirts, the hats. They have to be more than just that. But you know what? We're the only profession, and yes, from the author of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, that word, we're the only profession, for the most part, that wears our T-shirts and shirts everywhere and stickers on our cars. The guy from Subway Sandwiches does not have a big Subway sticker in the back of his pickup truck. It says, Subway, we do 12 inches, foot longs. The guy from Home Depot doesn't have a Home Depot tattoo and a lightning bolt through it says Home Depot, store 54, low sucks. I'm just saying, you look at career volunteer, they all have the T-shirts on, they got the tattoos, they have the ball caps, and the stickers on their cars. They love, and we love, that people see us and recognize us as firefighters, because we know it's more than just a job, a profession, again, volunteer career. It's a calling, and it takes so much. So why not celebrate that? Why not recognize them for things, and do it where I don't know why more people don't attend some of the volunteer classes. I know sometimes it's hard. I already said they got commitments and things like that, but sometimes it just takes a good officer to go, hey guys, what's everybody doing next month? Hey, Salka's coming to town. He's doing his engine class. How about that Saturday? How about we get up early? We go for breakfast, at Tina's, the Tina's drive-in, and then we're going to go there. And at the end of the day, we're going to go to TR's for a beer and some pizza and talk, and celebrate this whole brother sisterhood we talk about and we get the tattoos for. Make it more enjoyable, more fun to do things. Find ways to recognize, get your volunteers involved, seek out their talents. I'm amazed, Tom, when I go places and I talk to them. So what do you do when you're not at the firehouse? What do you do? I'm like, and we talked about this before. We all know what a millwright is at a factory. A millwright is the person that can run every single machine. They know where every breaker is. When I was on my hazmat team and we would respond to Nelco Chemical and their ERT, the response team would show up. And I'd go, where are my millwrights at? You three, you stay with me, because they know where every breaker is. They know how to run every single machine. They're the jack of all trades and the master of them all. That's what you have in a volunteer fire department. Like I said before, we take a whole bunch of people with all kinds of talents, all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of upbringings, and we smush them together for the all-star team. But if you're not going to pick that apart, if you're not going to pay attention to people, if you're not going to recognize them for their hidden talents, the things they do as hobbies, the things they do, you're never going to know. Every volunteer firehouse, you look around, you're going to see people from all walks of life in your community, from someone who's going to be maybe a city council member, to a lawyer, to my plumber, to the bus driver, to the sheriff's office. I mean, it's everything. And we've got this talent base that's incredible. Some people are not good at recognizing. Some people, whether it's a jealousy thing or they're just not paying attention. I think a lot of times there are people to go, oh my God, you want to brag about your department. You do this, you go, come look, let me explain to you who we got there. And you saw the military did it. Remember the military threw the poster, and this half had their helmet and their camouflage on. This half they were a school teacher or whatever. We started doing that a little bit in the volunteer fire service, where we did your helmet and your gear, and on this half, you showed a construction helmet, or you showed a teacher, or you saw, and we said, yeah, I do this to help my community. I do this, to pay the, to get people to recognize that there are people that not every firehouse in every community is career. Not every firehouse will ever be career, because it'd be impossible. There's communities in this country that will never be able to afford a career department, and they rely heavily on their volunteers. The departments that don't have a budget, the departments that need you to drop off a couple of cases of water or Gatorade once in a while, when they're out there doing fill the boot or a coin drop, or they're out there doing a fundraiser, selling tickets for a gun raffle, there's some departments out there, there's time, you deal with them. That's their whole budget, man. Their whole budget is through fundraising. They don't get tax dollars, And also, I know there's a reserve and auxiliary police officers, but I don't know if you've ever met. Maybe there's one out there. There might be. I've never met a volunteer police department.
Right.
I've never met one, but there's 66% of the just under 40,000 in the United States alone are volunteer. So yeah. that should say something special right there. And
I want to throw back something at the volunteer. So we talked about what departments can do to maybe be more inclusive and to help open their, maybe bring in some more members, open up their ranks to different types of membership. I'm going to go back now and throw something at the volunteer, that to avoid the term you mentioned earlier, slacker, there is give and take. And as much as we want departments to maybe change a little bit and be a little more flexible in their requirements and ways of doing things, the volunteer member also needs to realize that they got to meet halfway here. And if a department is rolling out new ideas and accepting different types of members, or maybe scheduling ideas like signing in from home and things like that, you still have a duty and obligation as a volunteer firefighter to be honorable and still give back to the department as often as possible and not be a slacker.
Yeah, we talk about the words that represent a true volunteer, like integrity, duty, honor, commitment, sacrifice, all that. Well, commitment is just that. You've committed to your volunteer fire department to serve your community. Now, look, you got kids in sports and things like that. We talked about that. It ebbs and flows. There's times where I can make all the calls in the world, and there's a season where I'm just going to be busy, and that's the volunteer fire service. But as much as we need more volunteers, we also need to remind those sign up that we need someone who is willing to commit to a different way of life here. One of sacrifice, one of duty, one of honor, one of providing people back their dignity. That's what we do in town. We see people in our town from all walks of life at their most vulnerable moments. 2 a.m, we're in someone's living room, prominent person from town whose daughter or son's having a dependency problem with a drug or something like that, or an alcohol or whatever. Or we see, there's all kinds of things where, boy, oh boy, if we wanted to ruin people's lives, we could go run our mouths about what we see, but we don't. We hold it close to our chest because that's the trust the public gives us. They allow us into their homes. They give us keys to their businesses. That's why every other commercial on TV has a firefighter in it. So there is something special about what we do. But you're right, Tommy. You have to bring something to the table. You can't just put the blue light in your car, red light in your car, wear the T-shirt, go, yeah, I'm one of them. And they go, how many calls you made this year? And you go, 2. When you walk in and you see a turnout gear and a gear rack and it's covered in dust. And I'm like, okay, now I'm very open-minded. Maybe this person has a loved one at home fighting cancer and they can't devote any time to it right now.
Right. We understand that. Totally.
Yeah. All those things. But some of them are people that were all caught up with it. And then they're like, well, or the people that, I don't know what they were thinking, but they're like, you mean I have to come to drill once a week? I have to get there. I have to do this. You want me to get up at 2 a.m. when it's snowing? You want me? I'm like, yeah, that's what you signed up for. Not to be a picker and chooser of calls, but if the pager goes off, if you're available, we expect you to come. And I've said that plenty of times. If you want to combat that whole, the volunteer fire service is going away and all this stuff, blah, 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 we can't get them out the door, then show up for calls. If it's a lift assist that you go on, fill the rig up, fill the parking lot up. Show up for calls. If you don't make the rig, you don't make the rig. There's always something to be cleaned in the firehouse. Hang out. They'll be back in a little bit. Maybe you'll make it next time. But you know what? You want to do this in the face of those people, the naysayers. Then show up for calls, man. If you're available, that's what we asked you to do. And I'm amazed, Tom, that I go to places. You've been there. Some of the oldest members on the department, some of them are still working, and they make the most calls. And some of the youngest don't. And it's not a matter of jobs and things like that and life commitments, and they don't have kids that are little anymore. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about driving by a house and seeing a car parked there while I'm going to the firehouse for a call, going, I get up at 2 a.m. Why are they not getting up? And it's not because they're sick. It's not because they're caring for a loved one. It's not because they have a kid. It's because they just decided they're not going to go to that call. We've all been there where I've had a loaded rig going to an EMS run, and the next day I'm driving the engine by myself going to an EMS call. And I'm like, and I drive by somebody's waving at me. Hey, how you doing? I'm like, okay, man, you know what? I'm by myself. So you're exactly right. There is something. You still have to hold people accountable. You still have to go, look, you signed up for something. You committed to something. That word commitment goes a long way. And it shows me something about your character too, right? I mean,
and some people need to be prodded a little bit. Like you said earlier, sometimes it just takes leadership, like you mentioned about maybe going to an outside training opportunity. Sometimes, I heard once that to be a good officer, you need a little bit of charisma, and there's something to that. You've got to have that charisma to be able to. I'll tell you where some officers get in trouble, in my opinion anyway, is usually your officers are that percentage that's really into it. They're really into everything about they like going to calls and they like all the training and they expect everyone to be just like them. And let's face it, the volunteer fire department, a lot of people are different. The officer's job, and this is where charisma plays into it, is to figure out what makes everybody tick.
You have to read the room.
And you then lead them to what it is you want to accomplish, such as going to that training drill and getting a bite to eat ahead of time, or doing something around the firehouse, or even, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Is everything okay? What's going on? Is there something we can do to help? And then maybe when people see someone slacked off a little bit, to use that term, it's okay. He or she's having a rough time at home right now, or their job is taking a lot of their time right now. Things like that, But if they're not like you, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, that you're exactly right. And that whole, like you said, we talk about reading the room. Once in a while you have to go, okay, all right, I get it. You know what? You need a little prodding. You're doing good. I never, I used to say, and I think I told you this story once before. When I was a young when I became a volunteer firefighter, and I'd already been an explorer, but when I was 18 and it was official, Barney Sadowski was my chief. Okay, he was a retired district chief from Chicago, which is one trumpet under assistant deputy commissioner. And he signed up to be our chief. He was the first career chief of an all volunteer department. And he handed me an old Plectron, no lights on it, nothing. He handed it to me in the cord of red. He goes, "Hey, Lasky, come here." He goes, "I'm going to make this easy on you because I know you're a Polak Italian." And he laughed. This is from Barney Sadowski. And he goes, "Look, when you get home, plug this in the wall. Now, eventually, inside, you can see a little thing glow." He goes, "It's going to make noises 3 different times. It's going to make noises on Monday night when they're doing the test of the home receivers. It's going to go off for Thursday night's drill, and it's going to go off when we have a call. Tell you what, anytime it goes off, come up to the firehouse." He goes, "If it's call, you should be getting your ass up here. If it's training, you need to be up here. And if it's to a test night, come up here and clean something. There's always something to be cleaned here." He didn't say, "Hey, Rick, you know what you do? Listen to the call first. And if it's not exciting, just ask someone else to go and don't go." He didn't say that. What he said was, "Look, I don't expect you to make every call. What I'm hoping is when you're available, you make every means to respond. We need people who are available to respond, or I shouldn't even give you this to plug into home." And he was so right. He didn't say you have to live head over heels and give up everything and leave your family on. He just said, when you're available, I need you to respond. And I'm like, that's so. And I sat. I had an apartment. I was already dispatching. You'll like that. I was already dispatching at the police and fire for the police department. My little apartment was a 3-flat. If I was sitting in my chair at 2 a.m, if I looked out the window through the neighbor's yard across the street, I could see the back of our firehouse. If the pagers went off, I could run through the yard fast and I can get my car, drive it, and go up there. But I want to drive my car because I had a blue light. Anyway, I could run through that yard to get there, 2 a.m, and the doors closed into the firehouse, the side door. Freddie Iano's car. Freddie Iano had 28 years in the department, was a captain at the time. I don't know, Tom, if he slept in the parking lot or what he did, but for a BS call, if you will, a non-exciting call, if the guy that has some of the most seniority in the department can beat me, the kid, to the station for a call, if anyone's earned the right to roll over and go back to bed, it's that guy. He's beat me to the firehouse. It was kind of embarrassing. It became my challenge to beat Freddie to the firehouse.
Right.
My goal was, I'm going to beat that SOB there. How's he beat me there? You old, what do you, are you, he lived like 3 blocks away, but he still beat me, and I'm younger than him and I can run faster than him. And I'm like, sometimes the pickers and choosers need to remember why we signed up to do this. Again, you're at your kid's function or whatever. It's a birthday party, surprise party. There's times you just can't risk divorce. You got to go and commit to your family.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And even if, I'll be honest, there's a lot of volunteer firefighters at the 40-year mark, the 35-year mark, the 50-year mark, and they might not have that passion to continue. Those that do, I can think of some that do. We have one in my department that's still at 40 years, still rolling at just about every call he can. God bless them. They're amazing. But some people they just mellow out a little bit. They don't have the drive, but they still want to participate and stay as an active member. That's great. My message is continue to earn the point, because we give points. Earn it. Do stuff around, serve on a committee, help out some other way. Maybe you don't have that drive anymore to be getting on the rig. You will if the call comes in and you're at the firehouse, but maybe you're not leaving home like you used to. But there's so many jobs, right, at a volunteer firehouse, so many committees, so many different parts of the department that need somebody to chair or to be on, whatever it is. Earn it. Do something to help your department out.
And I'm a big one on the area assignments, Tom, both on the career and the volunteer side. And a lot of people may not understand when I'm talking about area assignments, you just maybe think of it is, I love empowering people. So you find out that Joe Dillon, one of my favorite guys that was a volunteer, he's an airman up in Alaska. And I volunteered for Ryan at Wichita West. I'm just using Joe as an example, pull his name. You find out that he's really good with all the tools, wrapping all the tools, the Halligans, the hooks. So you know what you do? You give him all the tools. You respond, Joe, you've got every tool in this department now. That's yours. You've got another guy or gal that's really good at tech rescue stuff. You're on rescue. You're in charge of all ground ladders. I want you to do our maintenance program. Come up with a program. Come up with, okay, we have to test them. We have to do this. What's my budget? Chief, what do I have? Well, we don't have much here. Okay, I'll figure a way to get the money. Someone who's the big EMS guru becomes your EMS kind of coordinator person, and appeal to their likes and their loves, and give them some ownership. Give them some ownership in the department. Before you know it, they're going, hey. Come on, we got to rewrap these tools. I'm in charge of these tools. I don't like when the tools look like crap. Come on, let's rewrap them. We just had a job. Whatever. All of a sudden now, firefighters are policing other firefighters. It's not those wearing the trumpets that are going around. All right, guys, come on. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. It's time to get out there, wash the rig. It's some firefighter go, come on, guys. Hey, it's time to wash my engine. I have 581. That's my rig. Come on, let's go. I need some help. Give them some, give them some assignments to own. And let them take it and run with it.
Yeah.
And I think that ownership goes a long way. Like I said, Mark Venzer at Wichita West, I think Mark still does it. All the lawn maintenance and all that stuff, that's his baby. If you got to get something painted in the firehouse, you talk to Mark. If you're going to restripe the apparatus floor, you got to talk to Mark. Everything that's his thing. He's always looking for help. But I just love that, giving people stuff to make them feel proud.
Yeah, there's so much, and it might be just serving on one of the boards. Maybe there's different boards. Maybe there's a benevolent association. Whatever it is, there's
the truck committee. The truck committee. You got a guy who's a mechanic or a guy that drives it over the road trail. You go, hey, I need you to be on our apparatus committee. I need you to be on our station committee, our awards committee. The people that plan the whole awards banquet once a year, our department. I mean, right? There's so many things to get involved in and pound on your chest. And say, yeah, I did this,
Yeah. So I guess we could talk about this episode being find the good in your volunteer fire department. There's good among you if you open up your eyes and you open and have some ability to get out there and talk to people. It's, you can't, here's a line I like, you cannot be socially awkward if you're an officer. You just, it won't work.
It's called that leadership finesse. Yeah. You have to understand finesse. You have to be understanding to know not everybody can be like you said before, Tom, that everybody's got stuff going on at home, jobs, everything else. It's called the volunteer fire service for a reason. They're volunteers, they're volunteering their time. Read the room, like you said before. Pick out the qualities, get people, appeal, talk to them, buddy up to someone, compliment someone on a good job. Praise the silent heroes. The ones that aren't getting medals pinned on their chest and they're not, praise them, have recognition programs. When somebody builds a new ventilation problem, make a big deal about it. Get the newspaper. Newspapers sometimes are dying for some of these good stories, but yeah, find the good or be the good in your volunteer fire department. The greatest profession in the world. And again, folks, it's been around since 1736, and Ben Franklin created the first volunteer fire department. 1736, excuse me, is a long ass time, a very proud tradition. From our gold leaf on our apparatus to everything going on. There's, when you look at your local fire department, your fire engines, the uniforms, the ornaments, everything, there's a reason why they get dressed up the way they do.
You just made me think of a story, and I'll end with this. We're hitting the 50-minute mark. I know you got things to do. Obviously, Chief Salka's law. We're going to have to put out a missing persons report on Chief Salka. We'll get him back another time.
Technology is not his strong point.
But no, I thought of this story. It's another story. You hear these stories, right? And sometimes you forget about them for years, and then oh yeah. So here's another one for you. This doesn't even have anything to do with a frontline firefighter. There was a department that told me this story about one of their members who joined, and he became firefighter certified, EMT certified, but he wasn't a real gung-ho, not going to a lot of calls, and he'd make his points, but everyone wondered, why did he join? He's not really giving back a lot. He's not beating people to the rig. He's not rushing up here, but he's a member, and all of a sudden 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years go by, and he's still on the roll, still making his minimum standards, but doing nothing else. And one day, a member of one of the executive boards for this department was doing formed a committee because they were looking to invest some of the department funds in trying to get a better return. This is just recently when the interest rates skyrocketed and people were looking at different funds and CDs and things like that. Well, lo and behold, this firefighter that they were all like, why did he ever join? He's not a gung-ho person. Well, he's a financial advisor. So one of the people on this board looking to invest the funds had the idea to put their arm around him, and because they got to know him a little bit, and you're a financial advisor, would you like to come to our meeting and maybe work with us on this? He's become one of the most valuable members of that committee. They found something that, he was really good at, a little bit of charisma with the officer or the person serving on the committee to talk to him, a little bit of understanding by other officers that are, really into it and going to all the calls and training hard, and to understand, okay, this guy is always in a suit and he really doesn't want to, but he's still a member of our organization. Let's see if we can steer him in a different direction to help us out. And now he's going to the meetings. He's advising them, and it re-energized him a little bit.
How about that same guy that could be your grant writer?
So
you've got someone who's very good at the whole paperwork end of things, very detail oriented. Someone that's good at assembling information. There's gazillions of dollars out there that are free for the fire service, but people have this. They're scared. They're intimidated by writing grants nowadays. It's usually fill in the blanks. If you have someone that has that know-how, there's another. I can get you stuff free.
Yeah. And look, I'm not going to pretend there's not slackers out there. We know there are. The point is, before you discount someone, before you cast them aside, before I don't want to talk to him or her because they're different than me. Let's open up our eyes a little bit. Let's get to know these people. Let's lead them. Let's motivate them. Let's inspire them. Let's exercise a little charisma. Again, I still think that's very important for a successful officer. And don't be socially awkward.
Exactly. I think that's perfect, buddy. I think that's perfect. Hey, good show. Good topic.
Yeah, we could talk more on that. I think I already got, I was going to get into something about the younger members today. I think I'll save that for another episode with you.
You know what? What you do is grab John. I know John had some technical difficulties. That's why he tried working from his car. He tried working his phone.
Right.
And he's like, so rather than have him do a whole show of cutting in and out, we'll bring John back on and talk about the younger members, because he was just talking about that with Sal Bloominggo of his Valley Joint, New York.
Okay.
About the young home run hitters, the young all-stars he's got, what they're doing, to make the place better, and, how the older guys and gals are kind of working in there as mentors for them, and so on and so forth.
That's great. And I got some great stories too. As a matter of fact, I have an article in the hopper at Fire Engineering based on one of my experiences this year. And the title of the article is, "We're going to be all right." We're going to be all right. So that's a good tease. Absolutely. Maybe we can schedule that for our October episode if we can get our schedules to align.
Absolutely. Brother, thank you so much, Tom. It's always an honor. You're my very good friend. I love what you do. I love bragging on you.
I appreciate that, Chief.
I love your love for the fire service, especially the volunteer fire service. Everybody needs a hero cheering for them. And I know you don't like that word hero, but you're one of mine. And the volunteer fire service, the fire service as a whole is lucky to have Tom Merrill. And I'm just like, you make it easy to brag on you, buddy. I do pretty much everywhere I go. So thanks for what you do. Thanks for letting me come out with you.
Absolutely. Just real quick, too, why don't you give your contact information in case our listeners, I know they love to reach out to you.
Yeah, it's easy for me. Go to my website, chieflasky.com, Lasky, chieflasky.com. That's the easiest way. It's got my email, phone numbers, yada, yada. Everything's on there. So hit us up if you're looking for a program or you just need to talk, and we'll go from there.
Thanks again, Chief, so very much. Just, I know you know this from doing your podcast. Just hang on until it renders and uploads. You can't sign off until then. So, to my listeners, thank you for listening in again to another installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department on the Fire Engineering Podcast Network. I apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning with Chief Salka. We'll get him on. Maybe our next episode, and we'll make him do twice as much work since he wasn't doing this today. So if anybody would like a copy of my book, The Professional Volunteer Fire Department, reach out to me. I'm still sending them all over. Matter of fact, I just ran out. I got these 3 copies behind me. My last 3, I just put another order in because I sold out the other night when I was at a presentation. So that's awesome. I love signing them for people. So reach out to me. And again, thanks for listening in. My next show is scheduled for October 21st, and I promise we're going to keep this great conversation going about our volunteer fire service. Maybe we'll have Chief Salka and Lasky on for that one. If not, they'll be on in the near future again. Folks, thanks again, and always remember, true professionalism is never defined by a paycheck, and your residents are owed professional service that's delivered by professional firefighters who represent a professional organization. Take care, folks.